Hello, Algebra 1 students, and welcome back to problem 45. This comes from lesson 9.5 from my previous videos. This one asks, what are the zeros of the function f of x equals 2x squared minus 12x plus 18? All right, well, zeros is just a fancy name for solutions, or in particular, the x-intercepts. And if we're thinking about a graph, and we have a parabola with a positive a value, that means my parabola goes something like this, and we can see the zeros are on, of course, the x-axis, they're x-intercepts, and we know it's going to be some number, comma 0. Some number, comma 0. That tells us to find the zeros of a function. The very first step we need to do is we need to set 0 equal to our function, 2x squared minus 12x plus 18. Then we're going to have to isolate x. Now we need to immediately notice that there are two different types of x's here, x squareds and x's, and we cannot combine those together. Whenever you have two or more types of x's, SADMAP is not going to work. We have to think about some other options. Now, two quick options that might jump out are the quadratic formula and completing the square, because those options always work. However, if you look at the answers that are here, these answers are nice integer values. There's no decimals, no weird crazy fractions. And so I think that we could probably use the box method. We could probably factor instead of the quadratic formula or completing the square. Now, can you use those other two? Yes, they will get you the right answer. So if you prefer to use the quadratic formula, go for it. However, factoring tends to be a little quicker. The very first thing I want to do whenever I factor is I want to see if I can make these numbers smaller. And I think in this case there is a 2 in common to every value on the inside. So that would give you 1x squared minus 6x. I'm just dividing everything by 2 plus 9. Now we can factor. So if you want to factor using the box, you can. You don't have to, though, because there's a 1 in front of the x squared, but I know not everyone's comfortable with that shortcut, so I'll just show the traditional way. We have a 1x squared and a 9. We need to break up that negative 6, and I'm going to try to do that down below just for later on. So negative 6x, and we know that they have to multiply to equal this positive 9x squared. This isn't too bad. What multiplies to make 9 adds to make 6. I think 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 plus 3 is positive 6. To get a negative, we need a negative somewhere in the problem, but a positive times a negative is not a positive. A negative times a negative is a positive, so I think they both have to be negative here. Negative 3x, negative 3x. Then, finding the outside, x and x, negative 3, negative 3. So what have we done? Well, we still have the 2 here, and now we've been able to write this into factored form. X minus 3 times x minus 3. Once we're in factored form, we have multiple factors multiplying to equal 0. We can just use our zero product property. Now, one thing that always comes up with the zero product property is what do we do with the 2? Well, let's tackle it this way. The 2 is multiplying, the x minus 3 is multiplying. Let's actually make 3 equations equal to 0. Let's do 2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Right, or just took each factor and set it equal to 0. Well, 2 is not equal to 0, and there's no x's, which means, and I'm just going to put a little slash through here, if 2 doesn't equal 0, there is no solution to that. The 2 doesn't affect our answer at all. We can just forget about it. These other two, though, we do have to solve. We solve our first one, we end up with x equals 3. We solve our second one, well, that's the exact same equation. We're also going to get x equals 3. Now, if we get the same answer, why did I show you the equations twice? Well, it's important to realize that a quadratic equation always has two answers. In this case, the two answers just happen to be the same. That's our fundamental theorem of algebra, that this square tells us the number of answers. So I think it's always important to see that even if there's only one answer up above, the answer is just x equals 3, technically that's two answers. They're just the same. And so that adjusts my graph just a little bit, right? My graph still has a positive a value, but now it's just going to bounce off the x-axis at 3, and it would look like this. Easy enough. So what are the zeros? Just x equals 3. Again, you can use the quadratic formula. If you want, you can try to complete the square, but if you have these nice integer values as answers, they are probably going to mean factor. Keep up your success, and hopefully you are even more successful on the final exam because you're prepared through all these videos.